Hey everybody, Nigel the Review, Nigel's Modeler Bench, welcome back. So here we are with the beginner series now, and this is part 7 already. As you know, I'm building this Scammell Commander tank transporter, and we've reached the point where I want to start using some photo etch on it, and we're going to be adding some bits to the fuel tanks. So this is going to be an initial bit about photo etch, and it's going to cover preparation, cutting it out, bending it, cleaning it, and all that sort of stuff. And then I'll do another video about actually using it, fitting and everything. So this should be pretty quick, but it's just basically going to be about how I cut it out, how I bend it, the tools that I've got, the tools that I prefer to use, preparing it ready for glue and everything. So photo etch, you can see in your instructions here, when they call it up, you can see here they're calling up PEA13, A14. Some manufacturers will have like Takom use like a broken heart symbol. I don't know what that's all about. And then here they've got a symbol here for bend. Remember I told you in a video a while back, you know, always make sure you know your legends, know what all the symbols mean, and do all your bending appropriately. So what is photo etch? Generally it's brass. Okay, sometimes it's stainless steel or nickel silver or whatever, but this is brass, as in most kits. If you buy Eduard, you know, Aber, Voyager, pretty much every manufacturer uses brass. Some manufacturers, like kit manufacturers like Tamiya, they prefer to use stainless steel, which is very, very hard. And it's a lot harder to work with when it comes to bending small parts and stuff, because obviously it's a lot harder. But what it is good for is where you're trying to do, like, you know, the launch rails on the back of a Yamato, for instance, or any Japanese aircraft. When they're brass, it's very easy to get them all wonky, whereas if it's stainless steel, it's more likely to stay straight because it's more rigid. So there you go. So as with most Trumpeter Hobby Boss kits, this photo etch, as you can see, has come wrapped in plastic. Sorry, I've jumped ahead. What is it? Basically, it's a sheet of brass. It's generally about 1/8 thou thick, 0.2 millimeters. And what they do is they print onto a laminate material. They print on, and then they put it on, and then they peel away what they want etched away. So in this instance, you would have had this here, this area here. Go to the camera. Why don't I just bring the camera in? That'd be better, wouldn't it? I'll bring the camera in closer for you. Okay, so this area here and all this area here, everywhere you see a part, would have been covered with a film. Anywhere there's a blank would have been exposed, and then there would have been a chemical which would have etched away the brass and left the brass behind, as you can see here. And then it goes into another system where they remove the film, and then you've got the photo etch there. Now these companies, very nicely, Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, they tend to put this plastic film on which keeps everything nice and flat, and it means that when you slide it in and out of bags, it don't catch on edges. If you get the Eduard stuff, here's an old Eduard set, and you can see it's got no plastic coating in there, but when you slide it in and out, it all gets caught on each other and everything. So it is nice to have the plastic on there. So what I want to do is basically we're going to remove these steps here. So we've got 3 and 4, which I believe are identical. No, they're not. The rivets are off. Look, you can see 4 has got the rivets off compared to that one. So we'll have to look into that. I don't know why, because the fuel tanks are exactly the same. They're from the same sprue, so very strange. But anyway, so we're going to take these parts off here, and we've also got these little brackets here which we're going to take off. So we've got this step here, PEA3, PEA4, and then we've got PEA14 times 3. So what I'm going to do, I like to leave the plastic on, okay, for the reasons I just said. It keeps everything flat, it stops anything getting stuck. But what I need to do is remove the part, but I want to clean the part up first. So I'm going to cut here from the back. I'm going to cut the plastic away. Okay, and then I can get into here with the knife, peel that plastic up, and remove it very carefully. Don't ever just grab this plastic and because you'll find you'll bend parts and everything. Right, so that is now like that. What I'm going to do is take a sanding stick. Okay, this is a fairly worn 400 grit. And while it's still on the fret, I'm going to lightly sand the back of it, and this is cleaning it, and it's also giving it a key, so that when we use some glue, the glue will stick a lot better than it would if we didn't do this. Now, I'm not sure how much of this is actually going to be going anywhere near any glue, but if this was a flat panel that's going down on something, I would make sure it's done everywhere. So that's that cleaned up. And then what I'll do, I'll take some Mr. Tool Cleaner or some thinner or anything like that, cotton bud. Okay, get the lid back on that as quick as you can because of the smell. And then just go over the back of that and make sure we've got any film or anything that's left on there removed. Most people forget to do this with their photo etch, but you don't know what's been left on there. I mean, you can see the dirt on there. A lot of that is probably sanding residue, but you don't know what's been left on there from the actual process, so it's good to give it a good clean. Okay, so that's that clean. Now for cutting, you have a few different options. Some people use ordinary scissors. Some people like to use photo etch cutters like these, which have a scissor action, unlike your normal snips, which have this, you know, close up together action. These have a scissor action, and you can get in and cut the parts like that. I don't like doing that. Somebody asked me about the Tamiya scissors as well. I don't like cutting photo etch with any form of scissors, basically because this is a flat sheet. So wherever there's going to be a nib, it's going to be a square section, it's not round. So when you try and cut it, it's going to want to twist because it's square, and it will generally twist the part, and I don't like to do that. So what I use is this, and this was from a company called Little Cars, which no longer exists, but I'm sure somebody else will come up with it. And all it is, it's a sheet of acrylic and a little plastic tool holder, little plastic holder thing there. So what I'm going to do is put this on here, okay, and I'm going to hold it flat there, and I'm using this because it's hard. If I cut my photo etch on the soft cutting mat, as I press the blade in, the photo etch will sink into the mat and it will bend where it's cutting. Where if you use something hard like this, it can't bend. And I use a round number 10 blade, okay, and what I do is like a rolling action. So I'm going to push the blade. If you notice, I've got the blade on an angle. I'm pushing the blade into the part and then rolling. Push the blade into the part and roll. This one is number 4 we're taking off here. So I think what I might do is just put a little 4 on there and a 3 on there. There we go. I know that where I've put that pen isn't, there's going to be no glue go in there, so I'm not worried about that. So we push the knife into the corner, and you can hear it as it goes through. Now, a lot of people say they don't want to do this, they like to use a pointed knife to cut their photo etch. The trouble with that is you're always using the same point of the blade, and because it's metal, the blade will blunt a lot faster. Which is why I like to use a radius blade, because you're always using a different part of the blade. You can see how easy that is to go through. Okay, so that's that. So we've cut it out. If you don't have this acrylic sheet, you could use an old bathroom tile. Anything that's hard, piece of glass, anything that's, I'll make sure it's toughened glass, anything that's hard, you can use. You do not want to be cutting it on an ordinary mat. Okay, so we can peel that off that plastic sheet. So there is our photo etch part. Okay, so that's those two out. Right, so now what we'll have to give this a clean again because I'm going to be handling it a lot. But what we have on here now are little sprue nibs. Come on camera, focus you bloody thing. Little tiny nibs. I'm going to zoom back out, guys, because this camera is not coping well. So they've got the little tiny sprue nibs, and you can use a file. I prefer to use a sanding stick. You can use a hard sanding stick like this. I wouldn't suggest using a sponge. Files I find tend to be a bit aggressive. I mean, all you've got on here is a tiny little nib, so you can just basically along the edge of the brass just stroke, and you'll feel when they're gone. Okay, so there we go. So that's that one gone. You can rub over, you can feel the little pips on there. Just rub over like that, and they're gone. Okay, So there you are, job done. Same on here. And there we go. So that's them all cleaned up. Right. So now it comes, we need to fold them. You can see on here we've got the symbol, it says bend, and you can see we've got the back edges bent down and the front edges bent down as well. So we're going to fold them. Now there's lots of different ways of folding photo etch. I have seen people using this method here where they get a rule and they hold it down, and then they get another rule or something or a knife and they get behind there and fold it up. I don't like to do that. I like to get really sharp, crisp lines. So you've got two, as far as I'm concerned, there's two options. You can use pliers. So here we have pliers, and we can hold that in there and get that lined up, and then we can fold it with our hands or push it down onto an edge, push it on the end of the cutting mat, something like that, which is great for small stuff but not for the bigger parts. And I would strongly suggest anybody that's getting into the hobby, if you're getting into photo etch, I would strongly suggest getting yourself one of these. And these are both, this is the hold and fold from the Small Shop, made in the USA, and they're all aluminium. Be careful, some of them are made from plastic, and I can't see that they will last very long. But there's the larger one there, which is really handy, and there's the smaller one here. You can actually get one even smaller than this, but I would suggest as a minimum getting this one, which is 4 inches. So, and we can see in here I've got a couple of razor blades as well, and they're really handy. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold this photo etch. Now obviously if I put this photo etch in with this small little edge here, you can see I've got this, I'm going to have to fold here. If I hold it on there, it's likely to slip out because it hasn't got much clamping. So it's far better to put it in that way and have all this brass clamped and just fold that little bit up. It's going to be a lot easier. The other thing about folding is you can see here there's a grooved line. See on there, there's a couple of grooves, and they are your fold lines. Now generally speaking, when there's a fold line, you fold up from that. If you're going anything past 90 degrees, if you try and fold this way so that you're folding towards you and the groove is towards you, obviously it can't go over, it's going to snap. So if it has to go right over, like sometimes you'll get in Edward sets where you make up a lever or something, you'll get like a round piece and you fold it over and over and over and you end up with like 4 laminate thicknesses. If you're going right over, if I wanted to bend that right over on itself, I would have to fold it away from the groove. You cannot fold it into the groove, it will snap. Okay, so always remember that. And like I say, I'm putting all of this under here to fold it, because if I try and hold it on that little bit there, as I bend it, it's like you just pull out. Okay, so I'm holding it on the biggest part. The other thing to remember is always work away from yourself. Now obviously if I did that fold there first, so I've got this edge here folded up, I then can't get it in that way. So just think about what you're doing. And the other little tip that people love that I've never seen anyone else do, I've got a single edge razor blade here. I'm putting that in that groove. So here you can see there's the groove in the part, and I'm going to put that blade into it so it's locked into that groove. Blade into the groove so it's locked in there, slide it over, hold the blade vertical, clamp down. Always work closest to the center. Don't ever try and work on the end unless you have to. Always work close to the center. And make sure that's clamped down nice and solid. And with the edge of the blade now, I'm just going to run underneath that piece of brass just to try and lift it a touch. And then I can come along with the blade, push it under and lift. Okay, and there we have our, and you can have a look at it, as long as it's roughly 90 degrees, you'll be happy. Okay, so there we go. That's our 90 degree bend, and it's totally straight, dead sharp, really, really nice. And then we can do this one here. Okay, so we can put that there, get my razor, make sure it's in the groove. There we go, it's gone into the groove. Lift it up, get it clamped down nice and solid, run the blade underneath, and all that's doing is just putting that initial little lift just so you can slide the blade under and it's not going to move the part. And then just come up 90 degrees, and there we go, we have our part all bent, and you can see how sharp and crisp that line is, and that's going to go on the fuel tank. Number 3 is for number 11, so this is number 12, so this is going on this one. I can't understand why they're different when the tanks are identical, but that's going to basically go on there like that. Okay, it's got some little supports to go under the front which we're going to bend up, so that's how that's going to fit. You can see how much better that looks than a piece of plastic trying to replicate the same thing. Looks lovely, doesn't it? So we'll do that again. Right, that can go under there. Get our blade into the groove, slide it under, make sure the blade is vertical, lock it down, come along with the blade, slide it under just to make sure, and then up. Up you go, 90 degrees. There we go, and then come away. Get the blade into the groove once more, just like so. Lock that down under there, and then up 90 degrees. We've made a second one. Now if you find that you've gone too far, okay, if you want to pull it back out, don't be tempted to try and bend it back out without it being in the folder. Put it back in the folder and just gently tweak it back until you're happy. Okay, as long as you put everything in the folder, everything will stay nice and straight and firm. It won't all buckle around. If you try and mess around with this now, you'll end up with it all buckled, and it's very difficult to get it back straight again. Although this brass, I must say, this is really nice to work with. Sometimes it could be quite brittle, the brass in these kits, but this feels really nice. So there we go, so that's that, and you can see that one's done. There's the other one next to it, the other way up. So you can see basically what we've done there. You can see the folding that we've done. So I'll give those another clean before I glue them on. I've also got to get those other little brackets off, get them bent up. And as you can see on here, these little brackets, they've got a line there which shows this side's got to be bent up, and then they've got a line there which shows that side's got to be bent up. So you can see, because these brackets have got to be made into like an S shape, as you can see there. But what I'm trying to ascertain is whether they're actually, if they come out 90 degrees to the surface, or if they come out on an angle. That's what I'm trying to ascertain. And looking at where these bolt holes are might help us. So that's going on there like that. Yeah, it looks like they are coming out pretty much straight. So there we go. The instructions are very strange in this. Oh no, that's going to be not for this, as part of the build, isn't it? What we're talking about. So that's the basics, guys. So remove the plastic. I like to leave the plastic on the rest of it so it doesn't get damaged, doesn't get caught up in anything. You can imagine if I remove the plastic, I could slide this back in there, it could catch on something and basically bend the corner of the brass over. So that way everything, I can do that and not worry about anything. If that wasn't on there, my finger would catch on one of those corners. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. So basically, get your photo etch, remove the plastic, scrub it up, clean it, cut it out, denib it, fold it, it's ready to use. And I'll be covering actually using it in another video, but for this one, I'm just going to keep it simple. This is how to remove it. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all soon. Any questions, comments, stick them down below. Bye for now.